Hi, this is Kim Olsen of A New Escape, and you're listening to According to Metal.
It's time for new metal album reviews.
That was Show Yourself from Mastodon off their most recent album, Emperor of Sand. And I remember hearing Blood and Thunder from their album Leviathan in 2004, I think, is around when that album came out, and saying to myself, meh, it's okay. And I remember at that time, and we're talking 13 years ago, going to, websites, metal websites, do metal reviews, metalrules.com, metalreviews.com. Well, I remember saying that it was some of the editors or some of the reviewers had it as album of the year material. And I remember going, I never listened to the whole album, but if it's anything like Blood and Thunder, it's okay. I don't get the attraction. Maybe I'm missing something. And so again, here we are. We do a podcast. Mastodon, whether you want to like it or not, admit it or not, has become a very big band. I mean, here they are 13 years later since Leviathan, since my first quote-unquote taste of Mastodon. And, my tastes have evolved. Mastodon's sound has evolved a little bit. And so here we are. And, I've talked about this before. Spotify, you have new metal tracks every Friday. A new list of quote unquote singles that bands have released will kind of come out, and you'll be able to listen to them, check them out. And I remember hearing the track I just played, the track we just played for you, Show Yourself, off of Mastodon, and going, I kind of dig this. Kind of rockish. It's not very metal, but it's good. I like it. This is a good track. And so I'm like, you know what? This is a big band. It's 13 years. My tastes have changed. Biv's tastes have changed a little bit in some ways, maybe not as much as mine. Screw it. It's a big band. Let's see what we think. And these are guys that are a big act in metal now at this point. I felt like, hey, they have a new album. Let's check it out. Biv, did you kind of feel the same way? Did you feel compelled? Just, you know what? Screw it. We do a podcast. This is a big band. Everyone seems to dig them. Yet I don't really get why people dig them, but screw it. Let's check them out. Are you in the same boat as I am going into this? Because I think we're probably on the same page. Yeah,
we are, and that's because, well, let's face it, as we were looking at the schedule for the first quarter of 2017, and we were kind of mapping out, the big releases. One of the biggest names on there was Mastodon.
Yeah,
I mean, in the world of metal, you kind of felt, well, to use your vocabulary, compelled to do it. Like, circle that one on the calendar. And, if you're not familiar with Mastodon, think Caius era, like Caius Welcome to Sky Valley era, think Red Fang, kind of that sludge metal kind of feel. But the best known of any of those.
So, yeah, absolutely. I mean, they were on Kimmel 2 days ago.
Right.
This is a band that is performing on the Jimmy Kimmel show. Jimmy Kimmel has like his live acts out in the middle of the stage. All right, perform and show, and they perform Show Yourself, the song we just played. And, this is a household name. This is the kind of band that if you have a rock station in your town, likely will play a Mastodon song every once in a while. That's just who they are as a band. So they're not necessarily underground by any means. And, four of the five members sing on this album. And what's interesting to me is the quote-unquote front man, even though you have 4 out of 5 singers, Brent, Brent has gone out and basically said that he, quote-unquote, fucking hates heavy metal. Which is interesting because he's in a band that is pretty much heavy metal. So I don't understand how a guy who's the frontman of a band who says that he's really into more classic rock and rockabilly writes stuff like this. It's really weird. Biv, I don't know if you knew that, but that's something he said. But kicks off the album with Sultan's Curse, which is a mid-tempo, some progginess to it. Reminds me of a song like 2 years ago, you said Caius, a song like The Sword, if you're familiar with those guys, like something they would write. Very Ozzy-like vocals, too. Have you noticed that on this album? Like, it sounds like almost Ozzy singing in some ways.
Well, think Black Sabbath era.
Yeah,
Ozzy.
like, it's pretty good, don't get me wrong, but there's some progginess to it, and I kind of dig the track, and it's, again, one of their singles also, which leads into Show Yourself, which is very rock-sounding, very radio-friendly. Again, it's the one they performed on Kimmel the other day, and I could see why. Complex, but not overly complex, very radio-friendly, and actually pretty damn catchy and sung very well, too. It's actually a really good song. One of my favorites, actually, on the album. So far, Biv, are we varying at all in opinions on the first two tracks, or are we kind of on the same page here?
No, so far I'm right there with you.
Okay, so when Precious Stones, the third track, comes on, sounds very Foo Fighter-ish in the beginning. And if you like Foo Fighters, then that's fine. But then about the 2-minute mark, this track does something that Foo Fighters would never do. And it's very, very melodic riff and some superb drumming on this track. Like, really good drums. And it just goes back into the Foo Fighters thing for a bit and kind of ends the song. So really weird, like it's Foo Fighters and then like really good prog metal and then Foo Fighters to end it. And so you have 3 tracks that kick off the album that to me are very different from one another. And then unfortunately I start to see a pattern happen. And that is whether you're listening to Steam Breather, or you're listening to Roots Remain, or you're listening to Word of the Wise, or you're listening to Ancient Kingdom, 4 tracks in a row I just mentioned. Is there a huge difference between any of them? No. You could have fooled me into thinking that when I'm listening to Ancient Kingdom, which is 3 tracks after Steam Breather, that maybe I'm just listening to Steam Breather the whole damn time and it's just a really long song. You know what I mean? Like the variation, it just got tiresome. Like it just sounded like it was the same damn song time in and time out. And that's unfortunate because if you take away some of the repetitiveness, the solos on this album, holy shit. The solos are great. I mean, really good. Bran Daler, who's the drummer, is amazing. Great drums on the album as well. So really top-notch musicianship, and it's a band that even though they're a 5-piece band, musically it sounds like they have 10 members in it. I mean, it just sounds large. It sounds big. Unfortunately, it also sounds repetitive. It just sounds like it's the same damn thing over and over again. Biv, what do you think? Am I missing it this year or no?
Well, I want to preface this by saying the last time I really listened to a Mastodon CD was Crack the Sky, I think in 2009.
Okay.
And that was because a guy that I worked with was like, dude, you got to check out the CD. And I was like, okay, I'm fairly familiar with them. I'm fine. I'll check it out. And I had pretty much the same thought now that I had then, which is you could put these in a blender. They're all the same. And to your point, I think the vocals are very good because they're, they kind of have that Black Sabbath era Ozzy, feel to them. I think the solos are good. In fact, I don't have a problem with any of the tracks in and of themselves. What I have a problem with is the fact that, fellas, can we get some creativity?
Yeah, it's there's so many songs that sound the same. I mean, when I got to Andromeda, which is what is that? There's 2 tracks after that before the album.
Scorpion Breath and Jaguar got her after that.
As I'm writing it down track by track, verbatim. Andromeda gets quite heavy at times, but it's at that time that once again I feel like I'm listening to the same song again.
Yes.
Like that's what I wrote down verbatim. Those are my notes from this. And it's unfortunate because there's some songs like Roots Remain, by the way, which is after Steam Breather. It's a 6-minute 28 song, very metal. So even though Brent, quote unquote, fucking hates heavy metal, this is a very metal track with a face melting solo. Great solo, great drums on this on this song in particular. And again, musicianship-wise, to your point, Biv, I cannot knock. These guys have chops galore. The only problem is that there's so little variation from song to song that I almost feel like I'm listening to the same thing. Now, for the first couple of tracks, they're very different. And after that, to me, it's one 40-minute track is how I feel.
Well, And if you're a Mastodon fan, you've had, just kind of putting this into perspective, this is kind of how I felt about Theocracy. Remember, my big complaint was I've been waiting 6 years for this CD. Well, you've had 3 years for this one.
Yeah.
You've had 3 years to really focus on writing and recording, and this is what I get. I get the same track 8 times. Before that, it was 3. So this is your second CD since 2011, and this is what I get, and that's where the disappointment has to come in. I would think for Mastodon fan, but I'm not a huge Mastodon fan, so we'd love to hear from you. Are we wrong? I mean, for you true Mastodon fans out there, what's your take on it? Are we just completely wrong? For me, I found it musically good. Don't have a problem with any single track. I just found it completely unoriginal and boring after about the first 20, 25 minutes. So for that reason, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10.
Okay, so I do it a little bit better than that. I want to touch on the last track, which is Jaguar God. 8 minutes to end the album. And I'm glad I stuck with it, because for the first 4 minutes, I'm sitting here going, oh, Jesus Christ, like, there's another 4 minutes of this song. But I'm glad I did, because 4 minutes into the song, it totally changes, speeds up into this really cool prog metal section, and then it ends with a very, like, Blackwater Parkish Opeth vibe, when, actually Opeth was good, to end the album and end the song. So, like, if you cut the song in half, the last 4 minutes of Jaguar God are really good. First 4 minutes, next, boring, same shit. But to your point, Biv, I didn't go into it with expectations other than this is a band that's pretty big. Let's see what the big deal is about these guys. And it's good at times. In fact, at times it's damn good. But then at times it's bad and repetitive. So, Show Yourself, Precious Stones, Roots Remain are standout tracks. Lots of talent, great solos, great drums, but the rest of the songs all sound the same to me. And so for that, I give it a 7 out of 10. So we're not very far off. There's a couple of tracks that I will have, as you like to say, Biv, and I'll steal your word, some tracks on this album that I will have in my rotation, quote unquote. But as an album, no thank you. It's not something I would buy.
Totally agree.
That's Mastodon. What do you think? If you're Mastodon fans, we're not. So are we just douchebags, or are we onto something? What are your thoughts? I mean, we're douchebags anyway, but you know what I mean.